Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, My First Season. My name is Greg, and we have a very, very special guest today. If you recall, a few months back, I made a stupid bet that I would get every member of the Paradise Island tennis team on the podcast. I don't know why I said it, but we have the second to last person of that team that's going to be on the show. You're going to hear him soon. And after this gentleman, there is one left. His first season was in Itaparica, Brazil. He was a Tennis G.O. This would have been in the year 2000 in the winter. Now he is living in the beautiful state of California. Yes, I am very jealous. I did work with him, as mentioned, in Paradise Island 2002-2003 season. Please give a warm welcome to Renato. Hey, sir, how are you?
How are you, Greg?
Good. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this so I don't look like an idiot. Thank you. I hate losing bets. You know me.
Yep.
So good to hear you. So good to see you. And wow. Okay. I can't wait to get into this because I'm interested in everyone's origin story. I guess my first question is, how old were you really when you started playing tennis? Because I think tennis is the hardest sport in the world. So why did you want to learn tennis?
Well, the funny story is that I never played tennis before going to Club Med.
What?
And I became a Tennis G.O. by luck. So I was a professional squash player once upon a time. And for some crazy reason, the chief of village in Itaparica, Brazil, that season thought that tennis and squash is basically the same because you involve the racket and the ball. And he offered me the job.
But there's no wall in tennis, right?
You're right. So
okay. This is, are we allowed to ask who the chief of village was?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
The chief of village was an amazing chief of village named Arni Iofi.
Oh, yeah.
He's Italian, and he was probably the reason I joined Club Med was him.
And when you say you were a professional squash player, does that mean you were ranked in Brazil?
Yes. So when I joined Club Med, I was 20 years old, and I had stopped playing professional squash a few years before. I was a few times Brazilian champion, South American champion, PanAmerican champion, and I was top 10 in the world.
Wow. Okay. Now, all right. How old were you? How did you develop a love for squash then? How old were you?
Yeah, I'm from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and lots of indoor sports because it rains a lot in Sao Paulo. I started playing when I was 9 and played a junior career. I lived in England for a couple of years. I lived in Canada for a year.
You did? Where about in Canada? Sorry.
I lived in Mississauga, close to Toronto.
Okay. Wow.
Funny enough.
So is this why you have like a near perfect, I'd swear you were English when I met you, but is that where you learned English, living in England? And
I don't think my English is close to perfect. My wife, Kim keeps telling me, please don't lose your accent. Keep some accent. So I have an accent.
Oh yeah, that handsome face isn't enough, Kim. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have a talk with her. Okay.
But I did learn English. I think in school a little bit, but that's not the reason I think I can speak English a bit better. But yes, traveling at a young age. I lived in Canada when I was 12, and then in England when I was 14. So that kind of helped speak a bit better.
Do you recall when you first tried playing squash?
So I played at 9 years old. I started playing squash. By the age of 10, I beat my first instructor. And then it was just an uphill. Like I just started to just do more, play more, do more. And I won my first national championship at 11. And then it kept going. Kind of like it's a small sport, guys. Like, it's not playing football or, basketball. You are not beating, thousands of people. You're beating hundreds of people. But then I wanted to play more. I wanted to try more. So I ended up I lived in Canada to play. I lived in England to play, to train. So that was my journey. I started playing professional squash at 14 years old. And in the same vein that I started early, I stopped playing professionally early because when I went to college, I did not went to college in the US. I went to college back in Brazil. If I knew I could have attended a great school as a student athlete, I would have done it. But I didn't. I stayed back in Brazil, but I guess is the right path on my life because I stay in Brazil, I joined Club Med in the end of my college time. So I thought it was perfect fit for me.
How did you find out about Club Med?
So at my college years, I was living in a city called Salvador, which is the state of Bahia. And that is the mainland, if you want to call that, where Itaparica is. Itaparica is an island about 1 hour ferry boat ride from Salvador. So I was living in Salvador, going to school there. My mom had moved to Salvador years prior. And I used to be a GM like a lot of other folks.
Really? Okay.
Oh my goodness. I was a GM, and I was a kind of a one of those GMs that keep coming back, those guys.
Okay. That's
So
right.
kept loving coming back to Club Med. And I always felt that the GOs were the best tribe in the world. I had to think about, especially on like the late 1990s. I think there was a lot of cool things happening still in Club Med. So I looked at them as my idol. And then at the age of 17, so 3 years prior to joining Club Med, the head recruiter in Brazil, which is his name is Carlão. He was a great chief of sports and a great guy. He ended up going to the Brazilian office. He said, "Hey, would you like to join our team?" I spoke a few languages. I was very kind of into the sports scene. And I said, "Dude, I'm underaged. I'm 17, man." He goes, "Oh, you can join now, but I'll keep tabs on you." And then I kept coming to Club Med. I don't know how many times a year. I used to go easily about 6 to 10 times. I would go to Club Med on a year.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Because I could go for the weekend, correct? I
That's
could
right.
hop in for the weekend. And then the last time I went as a GM, I remember there was an opening on the tennis team. And then the chief of village, Arnie, at that point, he knew my mom, he knew my dad, like he was a close friend. And he came to me, not with my mom, just came to me and said, "Hey, I know you're in college. I know you have your life back in mainland, but if you want it, it's yours. If you give me the wink, I'll hold the spot to you. So go home and let me know." That was a Sunday before I left for the par. And then I came home. This is a story, man. I came home, did not tell my mom. And then on Monday, I used to live at my mom's house. Back in Brazil, you don't go to college. You get out of college, you stay in your parents' house. And then on Monday morning, my mom woke me up. "Hey, Renato, you got to go to class." I said, "Mom, FYI, I'm quitting college. I'm joining Club Med." And she went ballistic. She went crazy. And she said, "If you leave now, I will never pay a bill for you ever again." And all that blackmail stuff. And I said, "Yeah, but I think that's what I'm supposed to be. I have this big calling to become a GO. GO's being my dream." And I called Arnie and said, "You better tell me that the position's still mine, because I just fought with my mother."
I just blew up my life. Okay.
So I just quit college, man.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So I went. That was the beginning of my career as a GO.
Now, in all those times you went to the village as a GM, did you ever once pick up a tennis racket to play?
Nope. I was
Okay.
I was known as a squash guy. I mean,
Okay.
even in I was the face of squash in Brazil. I had nothing to do with tennis ever.
Okay.
The head of the tennis team back then, it was like an Argentinian player called Gabriel. He was an amazing tennis player. He was quarterfinalist at the French Open doubles with Marcelo Rios. Marcelo Rios was like a top 10 in the world single. This guy was a legit tennis player, and he was the head of the tennis program. And he knew me as the kid. They used to come in and ask for squash racket. Itaparica had 2 squash courts, by the way. That's why I was always there too, because
Oh.
I could play squash in Itaparica. So he never saw me as a tennis guy. And then the next day, I come in as his new tennis GO, and he goes, "Okay, can you play tennis?" I said, "Nope, never touched a tennis racket before." So he told me this. He goes, "Today you watch me teach. Tomorrow you teach." Like no BS, straight into it. He wanted me to go to work. I don't think he liked me from the get-go, which is very common. Like a guy that's handpicked by the chief of village to be the new guy is not going to be welcome very easily. So I did watch his 3 lessons that day: 8:30 advanced, 9:30 intermediate, 10:30 beginners. And then that evening, I was really scared for the next morning. So that evening, when everyone went to bed, I took the canister of balls and I went to the tennis court and I started feeding for nobody. I was feeding the ball by myself to try to understand how to feed the ball and pretend I was a tennis player. And that was my first lesson was the next morning.
Now, when you were watching his lesson, did you find there were any transferable skills from tennis to squash?
That's a good question. So in tennis, you mainly top spin every shot, and in squash is the opposite. You actually slice every shot. That top spin for your listeners is when you hit the ball on the top half of it. So it spins forward. The ball spins forward, and slice is when you hit under the ball, and the ball spins backwards. There's a reason why these two sports play differently. So I've learned from the get-go that in squash you slice everything. So I said, okay, I cannot teach the slice to the GMs, but I heard the terms. Like probably my first few lessons were horrible and very bland and vanilla. But the thing is, I basically switched off from squash to tennis. I pull a new file in my head, and I think I was a proficient squash player, so I could translate the skills and move them a little bit to tennis. So in about, I would say, a few weeks to a month, I was playing decent tennis, and then was much easier.
Now, I've only played squash a handful of times, but do you slice the ball in squash to make it drop closer to the wall? Is that why you're doing that?
The theory is exactly that. You slice the ball because you don't want the ball to hit the wall and pop up. You want the ball to hit the ball and go downwards. That's the idea.
Now, having said that, when you were on the tennis court playing, did you ever do that at the net? Did you ever slice the ball? Were you good at? You must have been good at that, right?
So usually in tennis, slice is more of like a passive or defensive shot. So when I play tennis, I still play tennis to this day. Every backhand I slice, and every forehand I top spin. I think that makes it harder for my opponent to deal with my shots. And if one day you interview Peter from the Paradise Island,
I did already. It's up there already. I think he mentioned that your skill though. I think that's what he said. That shot that you have.
Yes, he hates it.
Okay. Man, we hate to run when we play tennis.
Yeah, because kind of like it takes the pace off the ball a little bit. So my backhands I slice everything, and the forehands I play a regular tennis forehand top spin.
So I'm guessing when you did that slice, you were probably hitting 85% of those just at the net or more.
I'll guess. I don't think it's very hard to miss a slice because for us it's like, anyway, slice for us is too easy. And when you're hitting a little squash ball, you're gonna be very precise. You hit a big fat tennis ball, and there's so much room to play, so it's hard to miss a slice.
All right. Since you had been going to Itaparica as a GM, usually I ask people, what kind of culture shock did you have? So since you were going as a guest, you had zero culture shock. You probably knew the hours you were going to work already because, you knew at least 6 days. So you basically knew everything already, right?
Yes. So that's, I think, a good question, Greg, because I want into the life, I want into the world of a GO. So I wanted the whole thing to come to me. I was ready for this. It wasn't a surprise, but I was happily surprised how much fun it was. But I'll tell you one story. My chief of sports then, his name was Fabinho. Fabio was one of the other reasons I joined Club Med, because he's was a great guy to work for, very relaxed, very Brazilian, very kind of swag thing. And so when I come in, Arnie, chief of village, came in and gave me like a, no kidding, 30-second, welcome, man. I'm glad you're here. I got to go. I thought like, okay, you recruited me last weekend. I'm here today. And basically, thanks. Well, good luck. Fair enough. And then Fabio said, I'll take you to your room. And my room was G93. I'll never forget it.
You remember your room?
100%.
Okay.
G93. And it was in the second floor in the middle of the GM's rooms. It was all the way, basically the last block. So we walked forever. And on the walk, Fabio, there was a great chief of sports. And for me, he was a chief of sports. And as a GM, he was my chief of sports. Now he's my boss. And he was different. And he walked around. And I remember getting to my room, and I never seen a GO room before. He showed me my room. I carry my bags, and then my door couldn't close. I remember like it was yesterday. My door, was the desk that couldn't shut my door. And as he was on the doorway of my room, he says, hey, brother, I don't care if you're the chief of village's friend or not. Over here, you're my guy. Get ready to work really hard. Kind of like brought me all the GM stuff died at that moment. And I thought that was brilliant, brilliant that he told me that, because I'm not going to be the chief of village's friend. I'm a G.O like everyone else. And that was the beginning of the University of Club Med for me. I learned so much from Club Med. I still talk about Club Med on a weekly basis at my current job. And Fabio putting a reality into my face was perfect.
Talk a little bit about shows, because when I had Gabby, the choreographer, on, and I asked her, how come I was always at the back of the curtain and Renato was up front? She said, well, because Greg, Renato knew how to dance and you didn't. Fair enough. Could you always dance? Because she wouldn't shut up about how good a dancer you were. So did you, or is this a Brazilian thing? Are you just born with it? Or did you learn at Itaparica?
Funny, I never danced before. I do not consider myself a good dancer, but because you do so much, correct, you kind of get the hang of it. And if you do with a big smile on your face, no one cares. So Gabby was just too kind to think I'm a good dancer. Because I'm Brazilian, that kind of plays into my hand. But I never danced before, and I think I learned a little bit while in Club Med.
Well, it could also work against you, because I did everything I could at 10 years to avoid the shows, but I guess
there we go.
You kind of had a target on your back. He's Brazilian. It doesn't matter if he can dance or not. He's Brazilian. Put him in the front row.
Yeah.
Make sure he's there at midnight rehearsal. Okay.
That's it.
All right. Okay. This is pretty interesting. About how long typically did you stay in Itaparica?
So, context for your listeners and for you, Greg. Back then, there was only two villages in Brazil. There was Itaparica and there was Rio das Pedras in Rio.
Yes.
That's it. So there was no Trancoso, there was no Lake Paradise, which there is now. And Itaparica, FYI, closed up. So now Brazil has three villages, but back when I was there was only two. And the G.Os did not travel. So while I was in Club Med, 9/11 happened. When 9/11 happened, it just got even worse. Basically, it was, so Arnie, the chief of village that got me, he when that season left, he took, I think, 11 G.Os. He's the best of the best. He took it with him. And then there was kind of a quote unquote informal mandate that was it. No one else is traveling. It was actually informed to us by management saying, guys, you're going to be going from Itaparica to Rio das Pedras and back and forth. You can grow within, but no one's traveling, which was a big disappointment for G.Os, as you can imagine. We joined the life because we want to travel and do a lot. So I was kind of like, okay, I better just kind of grind, correct? Do my grind, maybe go from Tennis G.O to chief of tennis, and maybe, I don't know, feel like I was enjoying the whole lifestyle anyways. I wasn't thinking much about traveling my first 2 seasons, because people stay there for like 8 to 10 seasons without traveling. Very, very common. You spend 3 to 5 years without traveling. So when Arnie left, the new chief of village that came in, his name is Meti. Meti was the professor of my life. This guy is, if he calls me today saying, hey, Renato, I need someone, I'll probably quit my job and go work for him. Love this man. This guy is everything I've learned. If I learned to lead what I lead today in my current job, he's the reason I learned anything, and I just owe a lot to him. He was much different than Arnie. Arnie is Italian, good-looking guy, Italian, charming. Meti was short, funny-faced, but he was so professional. So when Meti came, we knew that no one was traveling, but Meti taught me a lot, and he kept my dream alive of one day traveling. And I was the next G.O out of any other G.Os that took off Brazil after that batch, the Arnie, which I was, I think, 2 or 3 seasons after. It was the one then I left.
So when you left Itaparica, where did you travel to?
I went for a quick stage at Sandpiper. Okay. I didn't work there. I just did my ATP course there, and then I went to a common place from you called Paradise Island, my friend.
All right. Okay. We'll get into that in a moment. I just had a question that occurred to me as we were talking. When you started working as a G.O at Itaparica, did any of the GMs recognize you as a squash player? Like, did any of them show up to your lesson or like, hey, I know you. Did that ever happen?
It's funny. It did not happen like from Brazilians, but happened from international players.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Funny. Like Europeans, you mean?
Europeans, Americans, some of those recognize me. But the funny story is this. So Meti realized that, because, and I don't want to say this in any conceding way, I try to be as humble as possible and not look like like, I don't know. I'm just saying this without trying to brag, but
Yes.
I knew that there's only a few people in the world that could beat me. I knew the people that could beat me or get close to me. So, and I knew if they were there that week or not. So on the demo sport on a Monday lunchtime on the pool of Itaparica, we do the demo sport, the good old Mission Impossible in the end, that good stuff. When we were lined up, and I was just a Tennis G.O. in Itaparica, in an island back in Brazil. Chief of Village used to come and say, "Hey guys, if anyone can beat that skinny little guy there, put your hand up, Renato. If anyone beats that guy in squash this week, you have a free vacation on me." So he used to say this all the time.
Really? Okay.
And because I used to tell him, "I don't see anyone that I know this week here, so no one plays squash. You're safe." So
okay.
What happens often is squash became actually a big activity in Club Med for those seasons, because a lot of folks challenged me for years and years, and seasons they were challenging me to try to get the free week in Club Med.
Even if they couldn't play at all, they would challenge you?
Oh, especially Argentinians.
Okay.
Because Argentinians and Brazilians, they don't love each other, and they kept thinking, how can this little piece of crap beat me? And anyways,
okay.
I think I held my own.
So did you remain undefeated?
Thank goodness. No
All
GM.
right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, this is amazing. Okay, so you do your stage, yes, because Paradise Island has a big ATP. You had what,
Yes.
almost 17 courts in Paradise or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't
Hard-True.
recall.
Yeah, you had Hard-True courts. I think you had about, because I remember we used to do the bocce ball tournaments there at night.
Yes.
I remember counting them. Yes. Yeah. And okay, brought up your wife before, so this is interesting. I worked with your wife in Paradise on the beach, Kim.
Yes.
I guess I assume you guys met in Paradise the season before I had arrived, I'm imagining, correct?
That is correct. So we met it was her first season, and it was my...
Oh, it was? Oh, okay. I didn't know that was her first season.
She graduated from UCLA and went straight to Club Med.
Oh, wow. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then so we met on the sports team. I think it was maybe my first month there or something. The team was coming together. I got there before her. So she was on the beach team. I was the tennis team. We were friends for one season, nothing, like just colleagues. And then the whole team changed. As you know, people come, people go.
So you were friend zone for one whole season? Is that what you're telling me?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Friend zone. She will tell you better than me that she was my biggest fan. And I can tell you that I wasn't her biggest fan in the first season. And then the magic of Club Med happened.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Very nice lady. You did very well by marrying her.
I mean, she is fantastic. We've been together for 19 years. We've been married for 17 years, and we have 3 beautiful girls.
Wow.
That I do believe that at least one of them will eventually be a G.O. So it will be a full circle when that happens.
Okay. So one is more rambunctious and outgoing than...
I wouldn't be surprised if all of them become a G.O., but let's see what happens. I don't want to put that in front of them because we know how much fun that is. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Well, I recall before I met you, Joker told me all about you guys because he had been there that season with you. So he kept talking about you and Petey, most of the tennis team, in fact. So that's how I knew I was going to get along with you guys. And you, for some reason, like, I don't know if you remember this, you put me in, you needed someone for your Backstreet Boys number. Yeah. Now, I went on YouTube. I haven't been on my YouTube channel in about 10 years. You know that video that, what's the name of that song? You Are My Fire, my one desire. What's the name of that song? Oh, God, it's Backstreet Boys, right?
Luckily, I don't know the name, but I know the number you're talking about. That
video has 3,681 views for some reason. Oh, but my question is why did you give me the lighter that never worked? No, I'm kidding. That was me. Okay.
Because
that was all me.
Perfect fit for you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, of all my videos, that one has been seen the most. I don't know why, but I am going to post that. I'm going to post a link so people will know what we're talking about in this episode description, if that's okay with you. When I posted that video 15 years ago, standard definition was fine. I don't know, YouTube changed. So it's a little blurry, even though it was a high definition Sony camera. I want you guys to know. All right. Okay.
Yes, it's funny.
Now, I'm going to move you away from Brazil to to Paradise Island because I have my favorite tennis question, because I'm sure my question, when you hear it, it might have occurred on a daily basis in Brazil, but maybe not so in Paradise Island. So my question to you is, because I also worked with a Tennis G.O named Fabio, and this what I'm about to describe to you happened to him on a daily basis, and he got enraged. Did it ever happen when you're about to give a tennis lesson and a GM shows up in a Speedo and running shoes for the lesson?
No,
and if so, what did you do?
You're not ready to play. Actually, to be honest with you, is this: if he comes for the early morning lesson, which is the advanced lesson,
yes,
I would say with a big smile on my face, "Hey, my friend, how are you? Good to see you. Where are you coming from? Did it late last night? Did this morning?" I'll get some information. The reality that if it's an advanced lesson, they usually come the other way around. Yes. They come with a Nike bandana and full of props, but the beginner lesson, that would be a common occurrence. We don't love it because it's kind of a joke. Maybe it was the animator coming through with the passage or something.
No, this happened while I was in Turkey, and this would actually happen. I was always called to the tennis court to calm down my tennis G.O because he would just go nuts. What are you doing? He goes, "I'm here to play tennis." No, you're obviously dressed for the beach. The beach is that way, So so ever since then, I have this fascination with tennis G.Os and Speedos for some reason.
Yeah, it's funny because back in Brazil, it's a true story. People work out with Speedos and maybe a t-shirt, Speedos, and tennis shoes.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, that I know.
And Kim, actually, when we left Club Med, moved back to Brazil, Kim was like, "Renato, why are people running naked on the street?" I said, "They're not naked. They got a Speedo on. The t-shirt covers just enough. It seems like they're naked." So the people work out that way all the time.
Yes.
My issue in Club Med, Greg, with lessons was that the people, when it rains, the tennis courts get, of course, not safe.
Yes.
And then it takes about, when it rains, it takes about an hour to dry off. So we used to tell the GMs, "Hey guys, give it an hour, come back for the next hour. We make it more like a hybrid one." And they come in. So they come in and they test the court, and they go like, no, it's good, we can play. Sorry, sir, no, we cannot play. He goes, no, I got this, we can play. I said, "I know you got this, but I can't let you play." So then they go, "I'm going to call Chico Village, blah, blah, blah." And then one time in Itaparica, because in Paradise it's like hot roux, which is like clay courts, and Itaparica is hard courts. And one guy says, "Hey, I want to show you." And he started hitting some balls with the other person, and he ruptured his Achilles.
Of course.
And of course, he then blamed on me that allowed him to play. So anyway, there's all this kind of like fun stuff. So when Métis gave me the chance to run the tennis program, I was that guy that never, if it rained, I was like, "This is done, closed up."
Yes.
Everybody wait.
Well, that was how I described my job. My job was to keep GMs from killing themselves, because I don't know what happens on vacation. Like, you work the beach. I worked the beach with Kim, and you have a guy who insists up and down. He knows how to sail. He's been sailing 15 years. As soon as he gets the boat, he capsizes right in front of you.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Okay, but it just happens.
Yeah. I like that description. Keep them from killing themselves.
Yes, that was my job description. Okay. All right. I guess you're a pretty outgoing guy, as I remembered. So I'm assuming that eating, when you got to the American zone, eating meals 3 times a day with GMs, it was probably easy for you, right? Because you were a very outgoing, extroverted guy, correct?
Yes. By the time I got here, I was ready for it. Now, story that I'm not sure you know it, but many know. Every male in my family is a stutter. We all stutter. And in my language, I stutter pretty badly. Like my dad and my brother and all my male cousins, all my uncles, we stutter. So Club Med not only was the best workplace for me, but I learned not to stutter in Club Med. So imagine how hard it would be for you to be a GO if you stutter. Yes. So I found a way in my brain to kind of go over it. So, but by the time I came from Itaparica to the American zone, I was no longer a stutter. And in a different language, you don't stutter. I think many people know that. When you sing, you don't stutter. When you speak a different language, you don't stutter either. So luckily, I live in the US now. I speak a different language of my own, so I don't stutter anymore.
Do you dream in English now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How many languages do you speak now? 3?
So Portuguese, my first one, Spanish, my second one, English, my third. And I still want to keep working on my French, but 3 languages is good enough for me for now.
Okay. Did you meet any, besides any like tennis athletes, were there any celebrities you met in Brazil or Paradise Island?
In Paradise, mostly tennis. So because we had a partnership with the ATP, we played with Justin Henin, the little Belgian #1 in the world.
Yes.
We played with a couple of tennis pros. What are their names? But some guys, one guy made like Peter will probably remember this, and the other guys, like he was a semi-finalist of the French Open, but he was a one-off. It was kind of interesting to see them there.
Yeah, I think he mentioned him. Yes.
Yeah, and then I saw a couple guys, not in Club Med, but because we went to go to Atlantis all the time, the casino afterwards.
Were we allowed to, or were we not allowed to do that? I never understood.
Oh, we were allowed.
Oh, we were?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Joker and I have seen, I mean, we've had drinks with iced tea. We've seen Michael Jordan and the Backstreet Boys and Oprah Winfrey. And so we've seen some.
Oh, you saw that? Okay, so was that where the Backstreet Boys number came from? Because you saw them at Atlantis.
That was especially made for you, Greg.
Okay, thanks. All right, now in Paradise, because you mentioned a lot of people you looked up to, you liked in Itaparica. Was there any like managers, GOs that stood out for you, made a positive impression on you? You admire their work ethic? Anyone come to mind?
So I think the learning curve really happened in the Brazilian villages. I think we've had a lot of turnovers in chief of villages and sports, like chief of sports, a lot of turnover in Paradise. I have my greatest friends, I think, came from those seasons in Paradise Island. For example, in my wedding, all my groomsmen were GOs. So,
okay, nice.
Yeah, so that was, I think, where my core friends were. But like management, Angie Boucher was great, but she came and she went. And then there was, anyways, it was kind of a mix. So I don't think management-wise, PI was the best place for me compared to Itaparica.
Now, was Paradise your last season, or did you continue on after?
No, we were offered Cancun. I had the luck to understand that Kim was the woman of my life. So I said, okay, I can try to do this in Club Med. I know that's probably going to be tough. So we made a choice to stop. So I was lucky enough to find her, but unlucky enough that my Club Med life was gone by then. I always dreamt to be a chief of village. And I have a lot of friends now. I have a couple of friends now they're doing it, especially one that worked with me in Itaparica now. He's a chief of village and he's loving it. But I have to believe that decisions you made when you make them have to be correct.
Yes.
So quitting Club Med at that time, it was enough for me. And Kim and I moved back to Brazil. We spent I had to finish college. Remember, I stopped college before I finished it.
You went back to finish?
I did.
Oh, really?
And Kim was just my girlfriend. And this is a story that when you talk to her, ask about this story. Because I tell the story. My version is that she said, "Hey, I'll come with you. I'll come to Brazil with you." And her version is I invited her to come with me. I think she just said, maybe this is my year back in Brazil with my boyfriend. But once we were there, of course, living together back to real life, she did not speak the language and she learned tons. I proposed. And then after Brazil, we came to the US and started our careers in the US.
Now, how much credits or years did you have left on your degree? Are you talking like 1 year or?
I had 1 year to do, and they made me do a year and a half.
Okay.
But because I got summer to summer. I did a year, summer to summer, but I did a bunch of, summer courses so I could finish in 1 year because I was paying now by myself to go back to school. I was as broke as it gets.
Because of your mom's original threat to you.
Exactly it.
Wow, she's tough. Okay.
She's tough, but she's right. That was another great thing in life for me. So I had to. So I tell a funny story quickly. Back in Brazil, if you want to join a school, when you are like 17 going to school, you have to do an entry exam. On your entry exam, if you are like the top 10 or top 5, depends on which school, you get scholarships. And you study for those exams. So at 17, I got non-top 10. My brother was number 1. My dad was number 1. I was the dumb guy. So I just got in. And then I left school, left college, and I came back at 20 or whatever, 3, I don't know, 23 something. The school made me retake the entry exam. I'm like, dude, I haven't studied chemistry and physics forever. But then they said, if you're a top 10, you get a scholarship. I said, that's my language now. So I studied like crazy for a couple of weeks, and I made top 10 on the and I got a partial scholarship. That's the reason I could afford going back to college. And I graduated in from summer to summer, so basically a full year. Then came back to the U.S.
Can I ask what degree you have?
Yes, I'm the undergrad in business administration, and I'm about 2 months away from finishing my MBA program right now.
Really? Oh,
yep,
congrats!
Finishing it right now.
Where are you doing your MBA?
It's an online MBA called Quantic. If any of your listeners want a very innovative school that does online MBA, executive online MBAs, Quantic is absolutely amazing.
And it sounds intense. Like how are you doing this in a year and a half as well, or 2 years?
Year and a half.
Okay.
Year and a half.
Now, true or false? Does MBA stand for married but available? No, I'm kidding. Don't answer that. Okay. Okay. Don't tell Kim I said that. Okay.
Keep me safe,
okay.
Keep me safe.
Okay. Now, it's not often this was probably the only occasion I'm going to get to drop the H-bomb. So I see by your bio, you taught squash at Harvard. True or false?
That is true.
That is true. What year were you at Harvard?
2005 to.
Oh, okay, so Zuckerberg had just left then, I guess, right?
Actually, to tell you a funny story.
Yes.
So one of my students, few of my students were in the same dorm as him, and I used to go check into my students. I was the Harvard squash coach, so I could keep them out of trouble, keep them eating healthy, because they were all athletes. And he was around the era right there. So while I was trying to keep people away from getting in trouble, there was someone creating Facebook right next to us. So
wow.
I wish I met the guy so he can be a donor for my current program right now. So
that's right.
I missed the boat on that one.
Wow, that is so cool. All right. Now, I usually end the podcast by asking about, so you did Itaparica, Paradise Island. Did you have a favorite? Like I use the word magical. Was one of your seasons magical than the other, or was it because it was your first season? But for you, it's difficult, I see, because you started going to Itaparica as a GM. So I don't know, is there maybe one where you have more memories, or do you just like them both the same for different reasons?
Yeah, so good question, man. So I've worked in those two resorts in two villages. We go to Clametta once a year, maybe sometimes twice a year, still with the whole family now. So we go all around as GM. So we've met a lot of cool. But as a working GO, I have to say that my first season in PI was very special because of how much fun we had. We really had a ball. But my most special season of them all was my last season in Itaparica.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
My last one, Itaparica.
May I ask you one more question, because I love dumb questions. So, do you recall the dumbest question you ever asked, or like, when's it going to stop raining? Questions like that. What temperature is the ocean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's actually not it's not actually a question. It's how it starts.
Okay.
So the Argentinians, I got to make fun of the Argentinians a little bit.
Yeah, they're not. I don't have any Argentinian listeners that I know of, so it's okay.
If anyone that happens to be from there, please, I'm sorry, but it's too funny. So every time they start by saying, "Hey, Renato, una preguntita," which means, "Hey, little question. I know is going to be the dumbest thing in the universe.
Okay.
So when that happens, I just brace myself for crap like, do you guys sleep?
Okay.
I'm like, okay.
What time is the 8 a.m. beginner tennis lesson? Stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Some things that makes no sense. But listen, isn't it fun? One of my roommates, Greg, in Itaparica, he was an Asian Brazilian. His name is Dilson. Top 3 GOs of all times in my book. The guy's like incredible. Won every award for every GO, every season ever. And so he's Asian American. Like he's Asian. I'm sorry, Asian Brazilian. And we always eat together then, and we used to say that we were brothers. And we used to lie. It was about how many lies can we say in a row to a GM. So we lied for hours about like, hey, and I can't believe what people buy. The people need to buy this stuff. Like, oh, really? Yes. Interesting. So the reality, it doesn't really matter what we say to these GMs. They're going to have a good time anyway. It's entertainment, isn't it? It's entertainment. Yeah.
Joker and I used to play that at Cancun. I think once we were asked why everyone has a nickname, and Joker said, we're in a gang here. And they're like, really? They allow that? Okay. And he could do it straight face. I used to break all the time, but he could keep a straight face for hours.
Okay. That is too funny.
Well, sir, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't want to keep you any longer, but I'm so happy you did this and shared your story with us. Thank you.
My pleasure, Greg. Always good talking to you.
And I don't want to let you go unless there's something I haven't asked you or you forgot to say. I hope we talked a lot, but last question: if anyone is thinking about just, should I apply to Club Med or not, what would you say?
100%. Club Med is the best school of life there is. I worked for Club Med, I worked for Harvard, and now I work for my own nonprofit that I built. And I try to combine the things I learned along the way. And I learned so much more in Club Med than I learned at Harvard. It's by far the best school of life there is. And I highly encourage everyone to give it a try. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it because it was the best memories of my life.
Well said. Well put, sir. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, that was from Brazil and California, Mr. Renato. We'll see you all next week. Bye. Say bye, Renato.
See you guys. Thank you.